morning, and thanks so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the father-son team and the financial advisors behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find them online, find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team on the website. That is welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, 804-635-3550, whether you're seeking a second opinion on your retirement plan as it stands right now, want to see if there's something you can do a little better, a little fine-tuning, or if it's a first opinion, if you don't have a plan in place yet, all the more reason to set up a time, complimentary time to have that conversation with Ralph and Tim. Again, 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every show, with the Shorts. Ralph, Tim, glad to be with you once again. How you doing?
Doing good, Chris. We appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here as they get ready to set off on this next great chapter known as retirement. And there are some people who are of retirement age who maybe don't intend on retiring. Arnold Schwarzenegger, great example, recently turned 78, and he's often asked about the most common advice he gives to others. He told the Jimmy Kimmel Show, it is all about chasing your goals.
To me, that is what the fun is all about. It's like life is not existing, but life is living. The only way you can really live is if you chase something. If you don't have a dream, and if you don't have a vision of what you want to go after, life, it becomes dull. Have a goal, have a vision, and chase it. No matter what anyone says, don't listen to the naysayers. You can do it.
If you had told me back in the day when I watched Conan the Barbarian, and thinking that guy would be an inspiration, a motivational sort of speaker, I don't know what I would have told you, but he's not wrong. The numbers are important, having the numbers, especially when it comes to designing a retirement plan. But in a first meeting with a client, how much time do you guys spend actually discussing their retirement goals?
Well, I think that's a really good question, but I think the most important question is which one of us three are going to try to imitate the Schwarzenegger voice?
Absolutely not me.
Nobody? Nobody wants to be the Terminator? I'm terrible with impressions. But, when it comes down to it, I think, it's really important. A lot of people delay, talking to someone for whatever reason, trying to get the proper advice. I think when you take a look at our first meeting, we usually spend anywhere between, and it depends for everybody, it depends on the conversation, but it's usually about an hour. Because what's important is trying to figure out what you're trying to accomplish, because everybody's situation is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Talking about chasing your goals or your dreams, everybody wants different things, right? There's no right or wrong answer to that. But without knowing what you want to do, because retirement is about living on your own terms at this point in time, and it's not just, hey, we need to pay our expenses and we're going to sit around and do nothing. We've got things that we want to do. Whether that's doing more traveling, more golfing, more grandkids, more whatever, you want to be able to do those things. So that's why it's important for us all to be on the same page. And I think that's where we set ourselves apart a lot, is because we're more family oriented. And, once you get to retirement, a lot of times people want to spend more time with family because they were working so hard for so long, whether it's 40 hours, 50 hours, 60, maybe even 80 hours a week. You want to make sure that you've got the time at this point. So, yeah, meeting number one, trying to figure out their goals. It's usually about an hour-long conversation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, or we were raised saying that their end goal is retirement. That's not the finish line for your life. It's just a starting gate for another chapter in your venture in life. And that's where a lot of people kind of get mixed up, I think. Because, we strive for that goal of retirement at age 65 or 62, or whenever your goal is, but that doesn't mean you're going to stop living, does it, Chris? I mean, I don't think you want to stop living when you turn a certain age. I mean, you just want to start enjoying doing the things that you want to do, not what the boss said you needed to do or your client said you needed to do. It's just about you and what you want to do. I mean, you can have two paths in your choices here. One of them, you can have a meaningful adventure in your life from this point in time, or you can just be bored to death and depressed, because that's what happens to a lot of people. I mean, most people, they dream of retiring. They're going to be happy. Everything's going to be wonderful. There's going to be sunshine and rainbows for the rest of your life. Well, I hate to tell you that. That's not really the way it is. But, you're going to have to, all those years of hard work, now you've got your own time. What are you going to do? Guess what? You're on your own time. Do what you want when you want. Every day is Saturday. So are you ready for that? Are you ready to figure out your purpose in life after you retire? You need to understand that before. That's one of the things that we talk to people about during our first meeting we call the roadmap. I mean, it's just get you to understand. It's easy to do the numbers. It's easy to put things in a formula and say, cash flow analysis, this is what it's going to look like. But that's just a very small part of our roadmap process, because you're going to have money when you retire. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that, because guess what? Your expenses are still going to be there. They're probably going to be a little different. The only income that you're going to have is something that you've done over your working career of saving money for and through 401ks or retirement programs or other savings vehicles. Maybe you have a pension, but right now you're still going to be able to get Social Security. To what degree, we don't know yet. Who knows what's going to happen 10 years from now? But, all those things enter into the picture. But what are you going to do with your life? You just don't want to stop living. It's all about a mission. It's all about a purpose. And those are things that most advisors have no discussion on whatsoever. They're going to talk to you about money. They're going to talk to you about finance. That's a part of the picture, but that's not the picture that's going to make you happy. That's the part that's going to make you worry-free, to know that you've got enough money to pay your bills, do the things you want to do, and of course pay Uncle Sam, because Uncle Sam's always going to have his hands out. As long as you're making money, he doesn't care what your age is. You're making income, you're going to be taxed on it. So, the other thing a lot of people, may not think about it this way is there's a loss of identity once you stop working. Mm-hmm. Like with Arnold. I mean, he's still going to work because he enjoys what he does. So why should he stop? Just because society says you're age 65, you need to retire? No. Why not enjoy what you're doing? It's not work. It's your mission. It's your purpose. So the other thing is that loss of identity. If you're the vice president of a CFO of a corporation and you've worked 80 hours a week, that's kind of your identity. What are you going to do now? How are you going to identify yourself? You're just going to be a grumpy old man or a grumpy old woman at age 65 or 70? Those are issues that, like I say, advisors don't want to talk about because it doesn't make them any money, but it's a part of the retirement planning process, or it should be. Wouldn't you agree, Tim?
Yeah, I agree. And, talking about the numbers, there's not just, other advisors, but it comes down to, the people who come in, they haven't really taken a look at, what it's going to cost to travel the world or whatever. So this is why it's very important, because how many times do we sit down with people in the first meeting? They have their statements, they have their income, they have all this stuff, and they just kind of throw it out on the table and say, hey, can I retire? Well, that's not quite how the process works. So we've got to, we don't want to leave any stone unturned over. Yeah, so that's why it's important to understand not just the financial numbers, but also the numbers of the memories that they want to create. And without having the conversations, how are we going to know what they want to do? Once again, everybody's going to be different, so that's why we go through the process.
Things cost money, right? I think we're all aware of that. It's not just about the money, though. It is about what you're going to do with it. If all you're doing is, waking up and paying your bills and then kind of putzing around the house and going back to bed, I mean, you might as well keep working if there's nothing there. I think I've experienced this just this past summer. Tim, I know you did as well. Ralph, I know when Tim was of school age, you experienced this as well. Summer, when you said every day is a Saturday, every day is a summer day, that's great for a little while if you don't have any plans in place, but eventually the boredom sits in. It's the same sort of thing when it comes to your retirement. If you want to just, lay low for a couple months and then start doing something else, that is fine. But what is that something else? You've probably dreamed about it. You probably already envisioned that. Bring those conversations to the table when you sit down and speak with Ralph, when you speak with Tim and the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. It's kind of like doing a maze backwards. If you know what you want to do, if you know what the framework is going to look like or the end of the maze, now we work backwards to say how to make this, ideally into a reality. It's the conversation that it's not just about the money. Money is kind of secondary, especially in those first appointments, those first looks. It's about what you want to achieve in retirement. So bring that to the table and let the team begin that complimentary conversation and begin the work to hopefully bring all that to light. 804-635-3550 or go online, welcomehomefp.com. I meant to ask this earlier, just really quick. What is your favorite Arnold movie?
I think Dad's is Kindergarten Cop, but I'd probably say the first Terminator would be mine.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with Kindergarten Cop. I've asked a couple people this, and they did say that was that was up there. I'm a big fan of Predator myself, but
Yeah.
all good choices all in all. And I think the man has done some pretty good work. He probably has like 8 more Terminators in the pipelines before it's all said and done. But
Oh, I'm sure of it.
yeah. Last one was 6 years ago, so I think we're due for a new one. But I digress. Anyway, there are people out there who do envision their retirement, and they've got a calendar, and perhaps they're about 5 years away from retirement. Have you started a countdown checklist if you fall into that category? Morningstar's Christine Benn says one of the items on that checklist should be de-risking your portfolio.
A lot of people do come into retirement with very equity-heavy portfolios. The idea is that you're taking some risk off the table. And what you're doing there is that you're protecting yourself against a bad sequence of returns, specifically bad equity market losses showing up early in your retirement. So if you've built out your portfolio's allocation to safer assets, you could spend from those and leave your more aggressive equity assets intact, leave them room to recover when the market eventually does.
It's easy to say you're comfortable with risk when there is no risk to be had, but as we saw back in April, even though it was a quick turnaround, the markets do fluctuate. Do you see new clients coming in with riskier portfolios than they're aware of?
Oh, yeah, we see it quite a bit. But what is amazing to me is we run into a lot of people that have no idea what their investments are doing, right? When we go through our process in the first meeting, there's a question that we ask, what do you anticipate? What type of return are you looking for or anticipate each year? And they can't answer the question. Most people can't answer that question. But then I ask them, do you know what you're currently getting? And they're like, no, absolutely, I don't. So I think that's why taking a look, having a second opinion, because one of the biggest mistakes that we see is, what their current risk profile in their portfolio now is the same as it was, 30 or 40 years ago when they started work at that company. So I see that, I should say we see that quite a bit. And it's important to make sure that you have your investments in your portfolio aligned with your risk tolerance. And I know that those are all terms that people hear and don't really quite understand. But it's important. Like she talked about sequence of returns. Well, what if you retire this year, you keep everything in the market and we have a couple bad years in the beginning, right? That could derail your entire retirement, right? So you've got to make sure that you've got different pots of money doing different things and not just keeping everything inside that 401k or the TSP. We hear it a lot. Well, I want to leave it in my current employer account. And it's like, well, why? It's like, well, I hardly pay any fees. And it's like, well, you haven't really taken a look at the big picture because you don't know what other fees are coming out except for that $50 a month admin fee. There's a lot more to it than that. But also, too, is there's a whole lot of restriction when it comes to your current employer plan, and it's not necessarily what you want it to be. If you want to make sure that you can capitalize in different sectors of the market or different investment types, I mean, there's a lot of other opportunity out there. And I don't think a lot of people understand fully that, hey, you can take money out of your 401k and roll it into an IRA, and you're not required to pay any taxes until you start taking money out of the accounts. We meet with people, I'd say probably about once a week. I hear that, well, if I move it, am I going to have to pay taxes? Well, I mean, if you move it to a post-tax vehicle, yeah. If you do a Roth conversion, yeah. But if you're just taking pre-tax money from your 401k and sticking it into a traditional or a rollover IRA, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it until you start pulling money out. But yeah, there's a lot of people that just don't really know what their investments are doing. All they're taking a look at is that big number, right? They want to see that number grow, and not really looking at being more efficient, which is my favorite term, or maximizing where your current strategies are.
And a lot of people, they really don't understand when we ask them the question about what is your risk tolerance. I get that, but I think the number one thing, the way I explain it to people, is right now, as you get closer to retirement, we can talk about sequence of returns and all that stuff, but it's like this. If you are fixing to retire in 2008, 2 days before the bubble burst, and now your 401k that was at $500,000 or even $1 million just lost 50%, what are you going to do in retirement? Are you still going to retire, or you're going to continue to work? Because guess what? That pot of money that you're going to use to have a paycheck you're drawing from is now half gone. So how does that make you feel to know that you've just lost half of your money? And the other thing is, do you have the time to wait until it gets back up? Because in retirement, our time, believe it or not, Tim, is getting a little bit shorter that we're going to be around. Now, some of us are a lot older than we are appearing to be, but you still have limited time once you start thinking about retirement, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, or even some people are saying that you're going to be in retirement 40 years in this day and age with all the health advances and stuff. But we don't know that. But what happens if you have that market? Because the market's going to do two things. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down. We just don't know when they're going to do what. Okay, so if you are in retirement and you're drawing money out of your retirement accounts and all of a sudden somebody or some black swan event or somebody said something on YouTube that somebody didn't like and the market took a hit and you start drawing money out, it's kind of like taking money out of your bank account and never putting any money back in. You're going to eventually run out. And that's not what we're talking about for people.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point because a lot of people don't realize, when you're working, you can make contributions, right? I mean, I know people understand that, but that has a big contributing factor as far as your rebound. So if you lost money and you're contributing, you should be able to get back a little bit quicker than if you're not. But most people in retirement have to draw out some funds, or even if you don't have to draw out some funds and now you're RMD age and you're required to pull money out and you're losing money, think of it that way as if you lost 10% and you pulled out another 10%, well, you're down 20. Well, you need more than 20% to get back to where you were. And it's not every year that the market's going to pop 20%. Yeah. So that's why it's important to de-risk your portfolio.
The name of the show is obviously Aspire to Retire. And I think we all do. We all do aspire for that day where we no longer have to work unless we decide to. Working, at 70 should be something that you're doing out of choice and not out of necessity. But it's more than just aspiring to retire. It's aspiring to enjoy that retirement. Going back again to what does that look like, and also not having to worry about the fluctuations of the market. Yes, the market is going to go up. It is going to go down, Ralph, as you said. We can't control that's going to happen. What we can control is how it affects our bottom line as far as making sure that we can stay retired. We're not forced back into the workforce. And it comes down to that diversification. It comes down to that having money that is still in the market because you're going to need that growth down the line to counteract inflation. But also you don't want it to jeopardize your day-to-day. You want to have a bit more of a conservative approach. It's not necessarily as easy as taking it all and putting it under your mattress or burying it in a coffee can. What is that saying? I'm probably going to butcher this. A ship in the harbor is safe from storms. That's not what ships are for. It's easy to say, I've got no risk. And I have my money, somewhere in the bank paying, minimal interest, or it is, in fact, in my mattress or just in cash. But inflation, the growth potential of that is going to still count as a loss if the buying power of your dollar decreases. So you want that right blend of, growth and preservation. And it's going to vary from person to person, but it does come down to having that conversation about risk. And so if you don't know what your risk tolerance is and how your assets are set up, if those align, have a conversation. Come in for that second opinion with Welcome Home Financial Partners and find out, what your risk tolerance is, what it actually looks like on paper, and then if those don't align, finding ways to find that balance. It's as easy as going to the website, welcomehomefp.com, or you can give a call, 804-635-3550. Again, 804-635-3550. Of course, some of us don't intend on working past 70. Some of us don't intend on working past 50. Case in point, Venus Williams, tennis icon Venus Williams. After being away from professional tennis for over 16 months, well, guess what? She's actually back. The 45-year-old is trying to earn a pass to the U.S. Open. There is another reason for her return.
I had to come back for the insurance because they informed me earlier this year I'm on Cobra. So I was like, I got to get my benefits on. Started training. Insurance, you guys know what it's like. And let me tell you, I'm always at the doctor. So I need this insurance.
Retiring early, if you have the means to do so, go for it. But you need to understand what that is going to look like. And insurance is one of those factors. Venus is not the only one. It is estimated that a 65-year-old couple retiring today can expect to pay an average of around $350,000 over their lifetime for health care, including Medicare premiums and deductibles, things of that nature. Guys, are medical costs becoming a bigger line item when it comes to retirement plans? And $350,000, that is not insignificant. What is the best way to address that need?
Oh, it's absolutely a big ticket item. And, actually, I think I saw a report on the news today that the state of Virginia, they're going to increase health insurance quite a bit for different plans for this upcoming year. I didn't get to actually watch what the reasons were, or whatever the reasons are, but yeah, I think it's really important to talk about, because there are a lot of people who do want to retire at 50, 55, maybe 60 years old. Well, we all know that Medicare age right now is 65. So if we've got to bridge the gap, if we want to retire at 50 and we're going to need health insurance, right? We got 15 years to go. So, you could be anywhere between, I don't know, $1,000 to $2,000 a month, depending on circumstances. So that's something that's got to be factored in and probably often overlooked. Most people have benefits at their job right now where you're going to pay a lot less. I shouldn't say minimal, but you'll pay a lot less than buying the insurance out on the street. So I think, if you're aiming to retire before 65, I think it's very important to have that conversation sooner rather than later, because you're going to have to account for that. You're going to have to save up more money for that. So how do we go about doing that? And it's not burying our head in the sand and not addressing the issue.
Yeah, and I would say to Venus that she probably needed to have some advice about COBRA and all that, because I know a lot of people, when I was in the group business, that first thing they would do when they leave their job, they'd give us a call and say, why is it that my health insurance premium just doubled? Why did you do this to me? And I'm like, you need to understand this. And most employees do not understand this, that guess what? The cost of your insurance, health insurance, 50% of it has to be paid by the employer. So you were not seeing that taken out of your paycheck because they were doing that. So you just paid half of it. So yes, it did double just because they're not paying for you anymore because you're no longer working there. And then there's a little insurance premium that COBRA charges, about 2% more than what normal premium would be. But that's beside the point. You just need some help, because guess what? Like Tim said, if you are paying $300 a month for your family and working, it's probably going to be closer to $2,000 when you leave to go into the private sector, just get individual coverage. And most people, that's a big nut to crack, and they're not aware of that. They don't take advantage, or they don't appreciate what's being done in the benefit package. It may be right or wrong, but it is a benefit to the employee that most of them do not appreciate, because guess what? They don't see the true cost. And now, if you're on your own, guess what? You now know the true cost, and you get to pick and choose your plans. And it's not as easy as everybody thinks that it is. Would you agree with that, Tim?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to figure that out. And you don't wait until the last minute to do so. But yeah, I think with most people now, I think aspiring to retire before age 65, I think it's very important to have that conversation.
Obviously, you want to focus on the positives when it comes to retirement. And as we talked about at the beginning of the show, the dreams, the aspirations that you've had in the working world, what you want to do, the purpose of it. There are those things that you need to take into consideration, though, taxation in the future, what that is going to look like. Probably going to go up at some point. Market fluctuation, that is something that is going to happen, definitely. Healthcare is going to be a situation. That $350,000 I mentioned a second ago, that does not include the possibility or probability of long-term care. That is another expense on there. So yes, that first visit, that first conversation with Ralph and Tim, it is really about the getting to know and what you want to achieve. And then when you get more into the details, it is not, I don't want to call it the ugly side of retirement. It is just things that you need to be aware of as far as, how are you going to take into consideration healthcare? What are you going to do as far as taxation in the future? How do we hopefully minimize the effects that is going to have down the line? It is all part of that planning process, that comprehensive planning process. And I haven't mentioned it yet on the show, but as fiduciaries, Ralph and Tim Short, acting in the client's best interest, they are going to bring things to light. They're going to have these conversations with you, maybe not things that you want to hear, things that you need to hear overall when it comes to your retirement, making sure that you understand and then letting you make the most educated, informed decision for you and your retirement and what you want to achieve, what you have aspired to do. It all starts with that phone call, 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. Or you can go online to the website, find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team, and schedule a complimentary time to speak to them there at welcomehomefp.com. As always, I want to thank you for joining us, spending part of the day here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Really do appreciate you spending part of the day with us. Ralph, Tim, appreciate you spending time with the listeners here. Thank you. Have a great week as well. And as we wrap up, going to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, we appreciate you always coming in on Sunday for us as well. But, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world today. And we often hear quite a bit is, when's the right time to do this? When is the right time to start the process, or when's the right time to retire? And our answer normally is, the time is now, right? Don't wait. If you're thinking about now, if you're thinking about tomorrow, if you're thinking about a year from now or 5 years from now, pick up the phone, give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to give you a second opinion and create your very own retirement roadmap. And I think it's really important to do it as soon as you can, because life throws curveballs at you, right? So we need to make sure that we're covered. So once again, we want to thank everybody for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.